All right, guys, so I'm mocking up this engine lid, trying to figure out how it's going to fit, how it's going to look. I got it kind of in place, and what I've been looking at is I'm trying to figure out some hinges for the top of this that I can bolt on and then have this be able to open and close on a hinge. I've looked at a lot of aftermarket stuff, and I don't particularly like the style look of everything that I'm kind of seeing. There's a lot of boat stuff out there that isn't too bad, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for. And I started going through a lot of pictures, and I don't know if you can see this, but this is kind of what I came up with. These pictures are of various hinges that you can buy in the aftermarket, and their intended purpose is for Porsche 356, I think 9 series, other Porsches. And the idea of them, they're like a racing hinge basically, and most of them are titanium. And you can see like on something like this where it bolts in from underneath, and then it comes down, has a flange here, and has a leg coming up and over. They're all kind of that same style. And I kind of thought, like, I'm not going to pay, $700 for a pair of hinges that people are selling for high-end, Porsches that, have a certain look to them, and people are looking to have a certain look to them. So my thought here is that we will grab some steel, see if we can make something that is relatively similar to this that will function on this particular body. I don't know how it's going to come out. I don't know how it's going to work, but let's see what we can do, and we will go from there. Okay, so I've got a couple templates cut out of just regular paper for these hinges. So I think I've got what I want. So what I did is I've taken this and I've laid it on a piece of masonite. I used one of these fat Sharpies. So once I got this laid in here and I traced it with a fine Sharpie, I went around the line and I made basically making the outline bigger. And I'm doing that because my plasma cutter tip is 3/16 from the center of the hole to the edge. So what I'm going to try to do is, if I can get this cut out to this outer edge, then I can run the plasma, lay this on top of a piece of steel, and run the plasma along and cut this section out. And this will make up the difference. So this is the size I want it. That's the size I got to cut the template to, so that this will, buzz around there. So to cut this out, my thought here is to take hole saws, do the corners. All the corners that I can with this would be the bigger ones. And then I've got smaller hole saws to do the smaller sizes. Get circles basically cut out wherever I can, and I'll double check everything. And then just take like an oscillating tool and just cut the straights and go from there. And I'm hoping I can kind of sand these out and get them smooth so that this tip will run around it without getting hung up on anything. So that's what we're going to try to do here. Okay, so I've got all my holes cut. They're okay. They're not, a few of them are a little wider than I'd like, so I may have to, I don't know, we'll see what happens. I may just try it and see what happens with the plasma. And if I have to grind a few edges of the parts that come out. This one looks pretty good. And a couple of them blew through before I could flip the piece over. Just, I don't know if it was thinner spot or whatever the hell happened. But so now I'm going to use this oscillating tool, and I'm just going to cut in and get all these sections out. All right, I'm set up outside just so that I don't get so much smoke all over the shop, because I still got a half a day's worth of time to do some work in here. I've removed all the mill scale off of this. I've got my template sanded down along the inside edge so that it should slide pretty good. I ended up redoing these two because I didn't like the way the first two come out. I got a new tip in the plasma cutter, so I'm hoping that'll give me a finer cut here. But I think I'm going to start with some simple ones just to kind of get it going. And I'm trying to use, as you know, save as much of the metal as I can. So I'm going to work way out on the end like that. All right, so here's all my parts. The template worked out okay. I had a few, I think I must have had, if I, you know, the next one I do like this is the first time I've done this with, especially with small parts. I've used this material to do outside edges and run the plasma along here, and it's significantly easier because you can get in here and really sand edges and make them nice. But doing inside templates, this is the first time I've really done this. And I think I had a few little spots in here where the tip would go along and then get kind of hung up, and it caused me a lot of problems. Plus, I think I had the adjustment, the amperage and the air pressure wrong on this for 1/8 inch, because I got a lot of slag. You can see it here blown through on the back. Some areas aren't quite as bad, but I did get a lot. Like, there's a huge hunk right here in this corner. This was a piece that I hit a spot in here where this burned out spot is, and it actually cut into the part. So this was a scrap piece and I made a new one. And I'll be totally honest, these pieces all done, I had to run these through the grinder to clean them up and get them so that they were, you know, relatively flat. But I've got all my parts now, and I think that they'll work. I just got to figure out now assembly on this. I think I'm going to take them, I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put them through the sandblaster and just clean off the rest of the kind of garbage that's on here. I got a little bit of a lip from grinding. And then I'm going to start putting my holes in where I need the holes to be. And the general idea on this is you have these two pieces. This side would bolt to the body with 2 holes. This side would bolt to the lid with 3 holes. And then I've got this piece in the middle, joining the two together. And then these need to be shortened. But the idea, you can see the idea here, is this will pivot inside of these two. I'll put a hole between all 3 of them, and you'll be able to put a pin in there. This needs to get welded down onto here, and then obviously cut that off. And then this will need to be welded onto here. And then this will pivot right inside of here. So I'll probably stack these, and I may just drill them all at the exact same time, get them into the vise secure and just drill them all at once to get my hole perfect. And then I can pin them and weld them on. Or at least that's kind of my thought right now. That might change by the time I'm done sandblasting them, but just wanted to show you that this is possible. I think if you do a better setup than what I did, I had to cut 4 of these. This template was great for the first 2, and then I screwed up, and when I started the arc, I burned into the side, and I made this notch, and it made it really difficult to pass by here and hold a hold a good line. But this one wasn't bad. These corners were a little tough. There's some, you can feel it now. Knowing what I know now, you can feel the lumps in there, and they screw up the torch as you're going through. All right, I got the 2 top plates lined up here. I'm going to start with an 1/8 inch, and then I'm going to go up to a 1/4 because I'm planning on 1/4 inch hardware for this. All right, there's our first hole. We get lined up for the second. All right, there we go. Got both of these drilled out, and they should be exactly the same left and right. Okay, so what I ended up doing is I got these 2 end pieces with the hole through the center bolted in, and I've got this so that it's relatively flat right here. I've cut these legs off so that the idea is this can get welded on, each of those legs can get welded on, and then this can get welded on here. I may need to shorten up this arm. This space is very big. I may need to shorten that up and see if I can. I got to put it up to the body first to see if this gap is going to be too big. I'm guessing it's probably going to be closer to like there. So I'll have to recontour this piece, which no big deal. It's just bolted into there. Okay, so I've got these legs welded on. I ended up giving them a quick weld through, and then I ground them down just enough. I'm trying to get it so that it almost looks like a cast piece. It's a pretty small area to weld, so it's kind of difficult to get in there. But they came out pretty good. So from there, this piece is going to sit down inside here. There'll be a pin that goes through it. Maybe not some bushings. I don't know. It depends on how loose this ends up being. I left a little bit of space in here because I plan on powder coating this, so that's going to take up a little bit. I probably have more space than I need, so there may need to be a like a nylon washer, or maybe a bushing goes through the hole in this piece to kind of take up some of the slop or something like that. We'll see how it looks when it comes out. I took it over to the body and I measured how far I need this to go. And because of the lip where the engine lid is, because of the lip there, I didn't want the screw holes way up on the corners, so they're down here. And I need to leave approximately 1 inch somewhere in here in order to kind of clear all that. So what I've done is I've measured this up, and I can't see it right now, but somewhere in here I have a mark. I scribed a mark on it. And that's about where that needs to go. So there should be, kind of rough at the moment, but there should be about 1 inch in between here. And then there'll still be, that'll leave a little bit of a body reveal and a little bit of a lid reveal, and give me space to have that inner lip that holds the engine lid so that the bolts aren't going through that. I've got to weld this on now. I'm probably going to do the same thing. It's pretty close, tight work, so I'm not gonna film it, but I'll get this welded up in there, and then I'll probably, same thing, I'm gonna just take a file and clean up the weld until I can get it kind of, hopefully looking as good as that side does. Okay, so here's how I ended up. I got these welded on. They're okay. They're not the best looking weld ever, but they're pretty good. I tried to smooth it out the best I could, just so that this will all kind of blend in a little. I I got a nick right here. I've got to go around all these edges before they can be powder coated and just kind of give it a light file just to take off the hard edge. So some of that might clean up a little. I ended up putting just a little bit of weld on the backside of each one of them, just to get this so that when it opens, it has a stop point. And I tried to get them both about the same. They're close. So that's where it'll just kind of stop. It'll hit on there. And that's it. So my next step, clean these all up. Once I get them all cleaned up, I'll sandblast them one more time. They've been sandblasted a couple times now at this point, just so that I could see where I needed to file a little more. And then I'll get them powder coated, and those will be ready to go on. All right. So I've got these stainless pins that I want to use to hold the top of the hinge in. They're the right size, but they're the wrong length. So basically I need, I don't know, 1/2 inch somewhere in here. So I need to relocate this hole from here down to here. I've made a mark on this one so I can kind of judge how far in I am. I've got everything set up. And what I've done on this pin is I've ground a small flat area. It's hard to drill into a rounded cylinder, especially it's something like stainless where it's, you know, it's pretty hard metal. So this is attempt number 1. We'll see if we can get this in there and get a hole started. I'm going to sneak up on it real slow. Hopefully I can kind of make a divot and before I really start drilling too much. All right, there we go. We've got our hole in there. It's relatively straight. It's a little off, but that's all right. It's not going to matter. It's just going to get a like a hairpin through it to hold this whole thing together. Let me get the other one made, and I'll get these shortened, and then I'll bring you back and show you how it's going to look in the hinge itself. All right, guys, here's what we ended up with. I powder coated these in kind of a satin black. They came out pretty good. We've got a couple... like I had mentioned before, there's a couple of angles and little dips and things on this metal from just, you know, me making it. But overall, I feel like they look pretty good. I feel like they're close enough to what we were going for. I got the pins cut down with the hole in them. I've tried to round over the edge a little, and it's okay. It's not they're not fantastic, but they're great. Good enough to use. So then I got these little hairpins. Everything's stainless steel, so being outside or anything isn't gonna hurt anything. And the idea was to put these pins in, and I have some play. So this one's a little less. I need to find like a nylon washer or something that's gonna fit into that area in there and fill up one side of this, which sort of a pain, but I tried a couple stainless washers and none of them fit. It's that thin of an area. This almost fits, but then something's not exactly right. But the idea here was when this is all bolted down and the lid is on, I will be able to pull this pin and remove the lid quickly if for some reason, you know, it's in the way and you have to work on an engine or whatever you're doing. And it would be as simple as pulling this pin, knocking this out, and then you'd be able to lift the engine lid off of the car and take it away. This would stay on the body, this would stay on the lid, and that's it. So that's the idea of this. The next step is to try to get it installed, which is a little bit scarier because I got to put some holes in the fresh fiberglass work that was just done. So. All right, so we're getting a little crazy here, but that's all right. I can't find any nylon washers that seem to want to fit at all, but what I did find is I have this brass sheet metal, brass plate, I guess, left over from the turn signal switch project. I have a couple sheets of this stuff. So what I'm going to attempt to do is cut out some circles because it's pretty thin stuff. I think it was 22 gauge or somewhere around the lines of that. I'm going to try to cut out some circles, and then I have a punch that is set with, I believe it's got a 1/4 inch punch already set up in it. And we're just going to see if this will work at all for us. Let me try to get this thing even on here. And basically, I'm just trying to make a really thin washer that I can put one on each side of this thing, and we'll see if it'll actually work. But and here's like a thin washer. I'm probably gonna have to hammer it flat, but the idea is here I could, and this is gonna be kind of a nightmare to get this together when this is actually on the car. Because you're going to have to try to slide this little shim down in there and line everything up and get this piece in at the same time. So it's not ideal, but if it does the job, which it feels like it's going to, if it does the job, then I don't really care if it's difficult. The amount of times you're going to take this thing on and off, I mean, you can see the amount of play that's in it now versus this one had a little more to begin with anyway. That's going to probably take 2 shims. But I guess that will probably work. And because it's brass, it'll outlast it'll work as it'll wear before the steel wears, rubbing back and forth on each other. So it's always possible for me to just replace this piece. I've also got another sheet of this material that's a little thicker. Like one, I forget what gauge I bought, but one was, say like 24 and one was 22 or something like that. And I don't remember which one this actually is, but I can always pull out the thicker one. I know this is the thinner one. I can pull out the thicker one and make a couple in that and see if that actually tightens it up more. So I've done a ton of measuring. I've got this all masked off and I've got lines in place. What I've got here is obviously this is the seam between the body and the lid. I have lines coming up from this body line to get me a hard line of where this ends. I have an upper line that gives me a 1/2 inch from the center of the seam up, which would give me, I have an inch between these two halves. So the idea would be I'd have an even reveal of orange between the two. I have this lower line, which is my flange that sticks out, that I don't want to put a lower hole too close to the flange because then it's going to hit it when you put the lid down. And that flange, I don't want to cut that flange any smaller. So this is kind of where I'm at. I think I have this lined up pretty much where these are going to be. I think I've tried them in a few different spots and I think they look good that far out. Somehow I'm actually from the center line here. I'm actually 1 3/4 inches on either side and it's even, which is a surprise because I don't know if this whole shape is even on the body. I know that my gap is going to be bigger on this side than this side. There's nothing I can do about that. It's the way the body was originally cut, because this was all one piece when this came out of the factory, and someone took a saw and went along and cut this to make this section removable. So they just did a bad job at originally back in the 70s of opening up this side. Obviously somebody made a much bigger gap than over here, and it is what it is. There's not a whole lot I can do with that. If in this situation, if you were going to restore this car to a point where you're doing 100% body work, sure, you could correct all that. I probably would have glassed the whole thing back in and made my own line to my own cut line that would be nice and even. And honestly, I probably would have put the holes in and put these in place and then cut my line so you'd know it was perfect. But this is where we're at, and this is what we've been handed to work with. So this is kind of what I'm going to do. And I'm a little nervous, I'll be honest, because drilling holes in this fresh paint and all this repair that I did, I don't have a whole lot of wiggle room if my holes are off. So I'm hoping that this all kind of works out. I think my plan is to drill the lower hole on each one first and put one hole in the top corner on each one. And then maybe see if this lid seems like it's lined up. Maybe I'll remove the masking tape or at least cut the seam open so that I can open and close this. And I know it's going to walk around a little, but I just need to be sure before I put more holes in it. I guess realistically, once you put 2 holes in, you're stuck. If it didn't work out, it didn't work out. But at the absolute worst, if I need to open up a hole a little bit in order to get this tweaked the way it needs to be, then maybe I can do that and then still have another hole to kind of lock it in place afterwards with some type of adjustment. So that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do it off camera just so that, honestly, so if I screw it up, I can swear at myself without you guys for a minute. But that's my plan. I'll bring you back. Eighth-inch drill bit, so I'm going to have to open it up to do the final, but there's no backing out now. That's fiberglass coming out of there, so. All right, pretty scary. We got some holes though. All right, so let me, I'm gonna see if I got some like little 1/8-inch screws, and I'm gonna actually put those in instead of the full 1/4 inch to do the test with. And then we'll go from there, and I'll make the rest of the holes gently. And and with any luck we get this thing on there straight. We'll see. So what ended up happening is my 1/8-inch drill bit, I didn't have any hardware that was good enough to use to test this. So I did the full 1/4 inch hole in these 4. I've got my hardware in. I haven't tried to open it yet. I just finished cutting it open. And I'm hopeful, nope, I didn't even finish cutting it open. I'm hopeful that this works. Apparently my cutting skills are a little weak, but and it's gonna have some movement. I know that until I get the rest of the screws in. But let's see. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. That looks good. I'm pretty happy so far with that. I'm gonna nick the paint cutting it open right there, so we'll have a spot to touch up. There is a little bit of side to side movement, but I don't think it's anything to worry about. Awesome. So I'm pretty excited with that, because I was very worried that I was drilling holes in fresh bodywork that were going to be for nothing, and I was going to cause myself a problem. I did, when I put these stainless 1/4 bolts in, I had to thread them through the holes. I actually had to take a screwdriver and thread them through, because the powder coating is thick enough that I basically cut threads in the powder coating. I didn't want to run a drill bit through it because this is steel. So the more powder coating I can keep in place, the more chance it's not going to rust. I'm feeling pretty confident, so I think I'm going to cut the rest of these holes. I'll get this lined up where I think it's going to be good. I think I'll get rid of a lot of this tape, and I think I'll get it lined up so that if it's going to have a little bit of a movement side to side be necessary, that I can see that now and put the holes in the right place. I do think that because it's a single arm hinge, meaning, and I don't know if that's the right term, but that's my term. So this is a single arm on each side. It is going to have some side to side motion like this because it doesn't have like a wider piece going through here. It's just this skinny little piece. There is going to be some movement back and forth. And I knew that going into this, kind of designing these, I knew that that was going to be that way. But again, it's going to have a rubber gasket in here that'll keep it in place. And I am going to have to build some kind of, or figure out some kind of latches for the bottom to keep this held down. But overall, I mean, I'm thrilled with that. It's sometimes, you know, like I've said before, sometimes you have an idea in your head and sometimes you build it and it comes out, and then sometimes you have an idea in your head, which happens to me quite often. It doesn't exactly work out the way you planned it, and you got to kind of go from there and figure it out. But in this case, that looks pretty damn good. So let me get those drilled, and I will bring you back for the final installation. All right, so I got one hinge on. I ended up making some gaskets for these. It's just flat rubber roofing that I punched out some holes and cut it to shape. But it's there, it exists. It'll kind of, hopefully it kind of protects the paint a little bit, and you know, I don't know, maybe it'll reduce some vibration or something, who knows. It just seemed like it needed a gasket like everything else. I've cut them to pretty much the exact right size, so they're a little tough getting on there. And like I said, these screws are tight going in these holes because the powder coating is kind of taking up some space there. So I could get them started and just kind of twist them through. And then eventually they do just drop right in. Somewhat. All right. And I have the two top screws. I'm doing a slightly longer screw because I am going to use that back side of that screw to hold some wiring for me. You know, for the wire, like when I get wires in place going over the top and everything, I'm going to, I'll use that to hold it. So, and the license plate light and all that type of stuff. All right, let me get on the other side here. And I've got stainless nylock nuts that are gonna go on the back side of here too. I'm just gonna do them hand tight for right now, and then we will tighten them up as we get going with you know, final assembly here. All right. I think that's tight enough for right now. And now we can rip the tape off, the final amount of tape here, and we'll see what this looks like. A little bit of tape left. Shouldn't have a problem with the paint. This paint's been on here for, it's actually been a couple weeks at this point, so shouldn't have any sticking or anything like this with the masking tape. All right, some of this junk out of the way. And that's it, there's our lid. Seems pretty good. Like I said, it may have some side-to-side motion. I gotta tighten this hinge up. That one's rocking around, but for the most part, once this is down, I actually don't feel too much. It actually seems pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So we'll get that tightened down. This side seems to be tighter than this side. I don't think I tightened it yet or anything. I think it just, the way it locked in there, but we'll get that tightened up. And that's pretty much it. That's, I don't know, I feel like it looks pretty good personally, but you know, you guys, maybe you guys like it, maybe you don't, but that's what's on there, and that's kind of what we're going with at the time, at this point. So I appreciate you watching. Hopefully it was at least entertaining watching make some hinges from scratch and getting them in place. Maybe it'll give you an idea for something on your own project or something along the lines of that. There's lots of other VW and other type repair videos on my channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, check it out. And if it's something that you like, you know, subscribe to the channel and there'll be more coming. Appreciate you watching. Thanks.